Friday, everybody. Welcome to Beyond I Do. You got me and Ashlee here in the house with you guys. We've had some great episodes lately talking about finance, marriage, and Nathan Sanaz with us. Today is me and Ashlee hanging out in the room. And we're going to talk about some marriage and relationships. We recently had a gathering of young adults who submitted a bunch of questions. I wasn't there that night, but from what I understand, we didn't tackle all of the questions. And so I was given these questions that we could continue the conversation about these relationship questions that individuals are asking for. So
I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, is it on the paper?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I want to ask.
You have one.
So I do, because I want to know, because then we'll talk about, this is for like the singles, I would say, or anyone. Did you think when you were single?
I didn't think when I was single.
That part. You probably didn't.
I didn't start thinking till I met you, Ashlee. Before then, my brain was mush and loose screws, and I met you. And you started yelling at me every day. And so I thought to myself, I should figure my life out. That's what happened. What happened?
No, I want to ask you the question because it's a fun one. Did you think you had game when you were single?
Is this a question?
Sure is. It says, how do you have game as a Christian?
That's a real question.
It is. Like, I want to know, like, did you think you had game when you were single? Like, did you think you could pull girls? Based off, not even based off of your position, because your position kind of adds some influence.
Yeah, but I was single before I was a pastor. I was like through college and stuff like that, and I would. Here's what I would say. Do I think that I had game when I was single? Okay, I'm trying to think. Number one, here's how I would word it. I had confidence when I was single. The only time I truly questioned whether I would be able to get a date with someone, honestly, I'm not trying to be romantic, was when I saw you. It's the only time that I really thought that I might strike out.
Really?
Yeah, and my literal text to Al Williams, when I said, hey, I remember it. It's like so vivid. It's 12 years ago. I text Al Williams and I said, Tom Elliott's daughter is here. I'm going to try to talk to her and I'm going to swing for the fences with this one. That's what I said. I'm going to swing for the fences with this one. In other words, was I was insinuating was I'm probably going to strike out. That's what I really thought.
But then in that,
which is why I approached you very systematically.
Okay, so tell me.
So I think as a single person, if you're a single guy, I think there has to be levels to which you approach someone. You're not a type of person, and me, obviously, you being my wife now, I know this to be very well. You're not a person that's like completely open to strangers or would allow a guy to just come up to you at a coffee shop and be like, can I get your number and get a date? Mm-hmm. You're going to say no to that.
Right.
Your sister's going to say no to that.
Yeah.
You know, so having confidence or having game doesn't just mean that you have the confidence to ask someone out. Do you have an awareness to how to ask someone out? And so with you, I realized, I think the only way that, and I didn't know you knew me or knew of me or whatever. I didn't know we grew up together. You knew that. You told me that later on. So I didn't know any of that stuff going into it. What I did know was if I have any chance of getting a date with this girl, I need to somehow find a common space or interest where we could be around each other, where she can see my personality.
Gotcha.
And potentially take an interest into me. Whereas I feel like on the onset, you wouldn't have been. Now, I didn't know in the background that you had a crush on me when we were teenagers and all that stuff like that. But on the onset, I thought if I just went up to her black and white, there's probably plenty of attractive men who have done that before and said no. So do I have game in the sense that I think I'm extremely attractive and I think that I have a lot going for myself? No, I wasn't confident in that way. What I was confident in the fact that I knew that if you gave me a shot, I could potentially show you that I have value in the sense of potentially being in a relationship or whatever. But I also wanted to fill you out to see if I was even interested. Because I was physically, I physically thought you were attractive, but it's like, man, this girl could just be not interesting whatsoever. Right. And I'm definitely not budging on that.
Right.
If I got with you and you weren't serious about your faith, I would have not gone a second date.
Right.
So I very much had boundaries that I also too was like, well, I'm not just going to be impressed that I find this girl really attractive. So you had to earn it kind of in my eyes too in that sense. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that. If I thought I had, but yeah, historically when I was younger, like was I known as a player? Like, yeah, I was. So, but that was my unsaved version.
So then
of myself.
Let's just say
my Christian version of myself was very different.
Let's just say I said no.
Yeah.
How would you have responded in that moment? Or do you know how you would have?
Yeah, I mean, I would have just kept it pushing.
Were you already setting yourself up for me to not?
No, I didn't convince myself.
Okay.
I wasn't like, oh, she could say no. I was like, no, I'm swing for the fences. I'm going to confidently pursue her a couple times, try to message her, try to engage her. But if you were just like, hey, I recently got out of a relationship, I'm not interested or whatever, I would have kept it pushing.
But one of the things that I think you have done that I think a lot of guys, and I mean, it's finding out, like you said, if you were interested in me after the couple of times that we hung out or the times that we were in the same space as each other. Because I think now in the dating situation, you pursued after me continuously until I didn't, and I conversed back with you every single time. Mm-hmm. There wasn't ever a dry or blank space. And I feel like there's a lot, even talking to my sister, a guy that she was talking to, she's like, they'd go on dates, they'd hang out, they'd this, and then all of a sudden ghosted. No explanation, no nothing. And she's like, this is why I don't open up. Mm-hmm. Like, either give me an explanation on why this is stopping or ending. And so I think that for our situation is obviously different because you continued and you had a purpose and you had a plan in mind. If you don't have a purpose or plan in mind of an end goal to talk to somebody, don't talk to somebody. Yeah. Just for the heck of it. And so, I mean, even in your instance too, saying like, did you have game? Like for me, no, I don't know if a woman is to have game. Do we have game? Do we have, or is it just all based on
women that aren't talked about well may have game? That's a different kind of game. But yeah, is it attractive? Is it attractive for a woman to continuously ask men out or always be out with men? No, that's not attractive. But and the reason why I think it's acceptable for men and unacceptable for women because most men are willing and ready at any time, at least for a physical connection, which is for us in the Christian context wouldn't be the way. So for a guy to be like, hey, I got coffee with a girl on Tuesday and then I met another girl next week, I got coffee with her on Friday, most people will be like, oh, he's actively trying to pursue a relationship. If a girl said that, oh, I got coffee with a guy on Tuesday, coffee on Friday, they'd be like, what are you looking for? Because more than likely, one of those three men you were at within the past 2 weeks is interested. Yeah, would be interested in having a relationship with you. Right. Now, in the example of your sister or whatever else, tends to be, I think on date 1 or 2, it's important for a girl or a guy to say, hey, what are you looking for in a relationship? Not do you want to get in a relationship, but just what are you looking for in a relationship? Are you ready for a relationship? Yeah. Well, what it like? Do you have plans one day? Like, do you see yourself being married? Right. Do you see yourself wanting to have a family? And if a guy's like, man, I don't know, I'm just trying to have fun, then that's why he's not pursuing you, because to him it's just like, as long as you're around and you're a cute date to go to dinner or in a non-Christian context. If he's trying to sleep with you and you're not sleeping with him back and you have boundaries, then of course he's gonna ghost you. He didn't win the prize, right? So he's moving on, and so yeah.
So is it true when and this is from a male asking male's perspective, when it is like you're saying you're single, you're dating, you're trying to figure out who it is you're attracted to. So is it true for men if they see that another man took you out, or find out that another man took you out on a date, they'll back off and they'll be like, nah, I'm not fighting for that person, because
I think it depends on the guy and if he's actively pursuing you. So if I was actively pursuing Ashlee And
say you guys were just talking.
Yeah.
Like you guys were just talking and
Yeah.
then you've showed like, oh, okay, I could be interested in this person. You know, you've been talking, but then that
Does she know I'm interested in her?
I mean, based off flirting, but not clear. Like, I'm interested in you, and I want to see where this goes. Not like in that sense. If somebody's flirting with you, they could be interested, but it hasn't been like clear.
Okay. So how many dates are you in? Have you gone on dates in this example?
No.
No
it's
dates.
Just been like no dates. Just FaceTime calls.
Just FaceTime
calls. He's stupid if he walks away. Or I don't know, but like you shouldn't. There's nothing to be upset about. At least for me.
Right.
And if I was talking to a young man who's like, man, I'm mad. We FaceTime a couple times, and
you went on a date with somebody else,
and I went on a date and he was mad. I'd be like, well, he needs to grow up then, and he needs to make a decision on whether he's going to take you on a date and lock it down.
Right,
like that. And I would lock it down to me isn't like, okay, you're in a serious relationship. Lock it down is just like, hey, I'm interested in you. Do you want to see where this goes?
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I told Ashlee really early on. Hey, I'm interested in you. I'm not looking for a girlfriend. I don't hope you're not looking for a boyfriend. I'm looking for a future. Would you like to get to a place where we start to hang out, really talk, and really vet each other and have discussions around what a real relationship would look like with each other? That was like on the third date. And Ashlee's like, yeah, let's check it out. So I didn't ask her to be Ashlee never, we dated for a year before we got engaged. She was never my girlfriend and I was never her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. We never called each other that. If anyone ever asked us, we never said that. We never said that. We went from friends to engaged. That was our view of how we did it. Now, I'm not saying that's how everyone ought to do it.
Right, because you guys had an understanding that you were exclusively just dating each other, right? Or not necessarily.
I mean, it depends on how you define exclusive, right? Mm-hmm. I told her we were pursuing a relationship that could potentially lead towards marriage. 12 months later, while we were hanging out, while we were getting to know each other, month 6, when we have our first kiss type of thing, I proposed to her. So there was no conversation of like, are you exclusive? Am I exclusive? It was the fact that like, if she wanted to, and I told her, if you ever want to go on a date with a guy or something like that, feel free. Just tell me and I'll make that decision whether you're worth it or not. So if Ashlee came to me on month 4 and was like, hey, I'm going to go coffee with a guy, I probably would have been like, okay, well, that's that. That ends this. And she'd be like, wait, what? For me, I would have been like, okay, I'm very serious about relationship. We've been going on dates, blah, 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 blah. But do I need to call you my girlfriend for that to be a reality? No, I don't think so. I just think there's a mutual understanding that we're pursuing a relationship that could lead towards marriage, because boyfriend and girlfriend is glorified marriage without any commitment. Mm-hmm. That's what dating is. Dating is literally, I have no commitment to you other than, like, I meet grown people who are 36-year-old who said, my boyfriend gave me this promise ring. And I'll be like, what the heck are we, like, what are we, 12? You gotta give you a promise ring at 36? Man needs to give you a wedding ring at 36.
Yeah.
So dating can often be just this weird glorified thing that lets us play house without any responsibility, without any commitment, without any covenant. It's just totally like, I'm just in it while it's fun, because that's what dating is. Dating is fun. I enjoyed dating back in the days. I enjoyed dating my wife. It was fun. You went to fairs and carnivals, and you went in picture booths together, and you ended the night with
Movies,
kisses, and you cuddled, and then that was fun. And for a lot of people, boyfriend and girlfriend, when that doesn't become fun anymore and it loses its luster, which it does, it does lose its luster. Sometimes for us, the last thing we'd want to do with each other is go to a fair or carnival together. The last thing me and Ashlee been together for 13 years. We have 10,000 photos together. So going in a photo booth and taking a picture together doesn't have the funness and the value that it did 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And so when that removes, guess what I have to go off of with my wife? I have to go the fact that I made a covenant with her, that I'm going to love her, that I'm going to pursue her, that I'm going to pastor her or lead her or pour into her, and she's going to vice versa. And so you have to lead off of your covenant. Dating doesn't do that. And so to me, articulable relationship is doesn't come with a definition of exclusivity. It comes with a definition of pursuit to see if there should be seriousness in this relationship that should lead to, at some point, marriage.
Yeah.
That's a Christian view. Secular view is completely different, and we see what happens with secular view. Unfortunately, a lot of Christians pursue secular relationship. They don't pursue godly relationship. So they define themselves as a Christian, but their dating habits aren't Christian, and his dating habits aren't Christian.
Right.
They're secular. They just happen to go have a relationship with God and go to church on Sundays and are Christians. But their dating practice is not whatsoever.
Right.
My dating practice was not before I met you in that way. I was in a 4-year relationship that ended horribly because it was based off of just funness and, availability and all that kind of stuff like that, rather than, hey, what are our future mutually beneficial to each other?
Right.
Do we have similar convictions? Do we have similar boundaries? Do we respect each other? Do we see ourselves getting to a place where we love each other and want to build something together, rather than you building your own life and then me building my own life? Like, that's what a lot of dating is. It's like, you go that way, I'll go that way.
And the one thing, like, I think when you even talk about like a date in a dating stage, a lot of people, it's what you made the statement of, it's like it's like marriage without covenant.
Yep.
And so there were plenty of times where I'll tell you, where Adam and I were dating, when we hear that people are boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're dating, and the amount of arguments that we heard that people get in is mind-boggling. Like, Adam and I got in one argument while we were dating, and I could tell you exactly which one it was. It was an argument because I felt that I was being not belittled, I was being made fun of by him in front of a group of people. And it was a game night, Bible study, and I felt like I was being made fun of, and I called him out on it, and he was like, that's not what I was doing. And I was like, well, this is how I feel, and you're not being sensitive towards my feelings. And he was like, well, I'm telling you, that's not what I meant. And I was like, well, I felt that way. And so that was our only one to where we genuinely had ever gotten an argument over anything, because at that point too, Adam had always said, like, I'm not your husband. There's nothing I can say that can change or deter you from doing what you want to do. If you want to do it, you have the freedom to do it. I'm not your husband. I have not put the ring on your finger. You do not submit to me. And so I think that when you get into a relationship, if the guy that you're talking to is mad that you went on a date, I don't owe you anything in reality. We're talking, but if there's been no significant of like, I see myself pursuing life with you, and this is what I want to do, and I want to grow with you, and I want to see where it comes down a year down the line of, this is where I'm at in my life. I've got X, Y, and Z on table. I know my purpose. I know my calling. I know what I want to do in life, and I want to do it with someone and a spouse, and let's see where that takes us. I as a woman would say, oh, he's pursuing me. Mm-hmm. I don't need him to say, will you go out with me? And that solidifies it. But if he's telling me and showing me day in and day out of, how's your day? What's this look like? Da, da, da. But then also giving me the security as far as like, I love what you're doing. I see that you're growing, and I see that you're in your word. I see all of these things as far as like giving you the confidence in yourself, because that's what Adam did while we were dating. He gave me the confidence in myself. I'll tell you, we've told the story multiple times. There was another time where, we've talked about it, where I've had 2 job options, and Adam was like, do which one looks more like Christ, and I didn't. And that was all he said. And when I was miserable in the job, he didn't say, I told you so. He wasn't negative. He was like, you made this choice, and this is the choice you made. I can't say anything different because I'm not your husband. I'm merely doing this life with you until that day comes. Then I would tell you, dummy, I told you so. Like, look at you stressed out, all upset.
I would have forbade it.
You ain't doing that.
I would have forbade it.
Of the
You
devil.
go work for TMZ.
Right.
I'm locking the front door.
Cutting the cards.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of women get wrapped up in this title of like, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, we're only talking to each other. If you have to have that title, I don't think that there's a real security within your relationship. If you are only secured on...
Well, but then what also happens is the logic progression of going to boyfriend and girlfriend is the girl doesn't expect to live there forever. She wants it to progress. So it's like, oh, you made me your girlfriend. When are you going to ask me to be your fiance?
Right.
You ask me to be your fiance when you ask me to be your wife.
Right.
And so because men and women are built very differently. And so what I would encourage any young man, which is what I do when I talk to young men, is like, you have to make a decision on when you are ready to make the commitment to be married. And you have to be able to have that conversation with her. We're talking about adults. We're not talking about 19-year-olds meeting or 20-year-olds. That's why that as a whole is just, it's hard to be in a relationship as a young person because the ball can't progress down the field. You're still in school or you're this or you know this and that. You can't afford to get in your own place. So, you know, really healthy dating moves into adulthood when you can afford to get at some point an apartment with this person if you decide to get married and yada, yada, yada. And so I think as a young man, like you have to make a decision on when you're potentially going to be get to a place where you could be married. And it doesn't have to be next year. It doesn't have to be in 2 years, but it has to be a way that if you're going to ask that girl to be your girlfriend, you know that there's going to be a progression of relationship. Because then what's going to happen is you see it all too much. There's these girls who are like, I don't, we've been dating 7 years. I don't know what's next. And I'll be honest, be like, it's probably not, because you've given him everything he has wanted from the game, especially if you're a Christian and you're not saving your relationship and practicing abstinence for marriage. So to him, he makes you his girlfriend. You guys are fooling around together. Everything that he desires, he's getting. So he's got a girl that's giving him cookies on occasion, and not just relationship, but she's blessing him with. She giving him lunch, she getting him dinner. He gets little back massages. He also at times, you guys are fooling around, and so then she's saying, when are we gonna move the next step? When are you gonna marry me? He's thinking to himself, I have everything.
Right.
I have everything that I'd want.
Why do we want to mess this up?
It? Yeah. And I'm living at my parents, so I don't have to move out and actually like pay real big bills, and I get everything on. And to her, she's like, which is the female composition was like, man, I want my own family. I want my own husband. I want children one day, and it's not going to happen overnight. But that is a woman's desire, and so there is a balance and a boundary. And for women who are Christian, who are wanting to establish boundaries, you're gonna have to be okay with that guy maybe not being the right guy. Because if you start dating him and all of a sudden you're not giving into sexual temptation, and you're not jumping into bed, and you're practicing boundaries even if he doesn't want to, what's going to happen is either A, he's going to have to make a decision to rise to the occasion and hold himself to a Christian standard deeper than what he claims, or he's going to decide to walk. And you have to be okay with that. Because what happens if you're not, and you go, oh, he might walk, so let me give up some of my values so that I could keep him around still, then what's going to happen is you're married, and marriage opens up a new level of temptations. Yeah. And you know, and my theory of what I've always talked to young men is like, when you're married, temptation sexually doesn't stop. Like when you get married as a man who's full of hormones and stuff like that, especially if you're a young man, like when you marry your wife, it doesn't all of a sudden mean you don't find other women attractive anymore. Right. So if a guy steps into a marriage and he has a pornography addiction, just the fact because he loves his wife and he's getting to have sex with her doesn't mean fully that it could stop. Right. And so, you know, you have to be aware. And so what I encourage couples is like, when you're dating, to practice abstinence begins to create a strength in you. And you may not succeed sometimes. Sometimes you're in love. I walk with couples all the time. We were trying to be abstinent, and one night we just went too far, and I'm like, hey, there's forgiveness for that. Yeah. Let's repent. That's what that is. Let's move forward. Let's give this to God. And so it's not just because we messed up, the game's over and blah, blah. So we talk forgiveness, but the encouragement is, as you practice saying no to each other, when you desire each other, when you're married, you're gonna show yourself and build the strength to say, when I'm in a relationship with my wife and temptation comes, whether it's through pornography or whether it's through a coworker because me and my wife are in a dry season, or she just had kids and for 6 months she's not interested in doing anything. When you can practice that in the dating phase, guess what? When you're married, you still have to practice that. There is a new type of abstinence that happens when you're married. And so when I'm talking to young couples and I'm talking about, hey, say no to your flesh, And the secular world doesn't understand this. They think it's, you're holding back your anatomy and it's just foolishness. But anyone who's married, secular or not, could tell you, and unfortunately a lot of divorces, 50% of divorced people get divorces because, and a lot of them come with some type of adultery or affair, and 50% of all divorces have pornography listed somewhere in there. And it's because, well, guess what? Most of them were not practicing abstinence before they got married.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at a wife, I'd be like, listen, and I've counseled people before where they did, the woman's like, we got married and I caught him masturbating. And I'd be like, well, you guys were living together
Right.
before you even got married,
Right.
and you guys were sleeping together.
Right.
What made you think that
Right.
you weren't doing it God's way before? And then they go, because, God views that as a sin and you need to tell him. And I'm like, I'm happy to tell him. But you all
Right.
also need to recognize what you were
You
doing
doing
before you
before.
got married
Yep.
was a sin too, because just because for some reason you labeled love on it doesn't mean the temptation isn't there anymore. So you have to, like the Bible says, Paul says, you have to beat your flesh down into submission every single day.
Every day.
So dating is an opportunity to put, like when we were dating, there was nothing I desired more than to be intimate with you.
Right.
But to say no says now, 13 years later, married,
Right.
when temptation does come or has come, I'm saying, man, I did this for the woman that I loved when we were dating. Therefore, I don't love that person that just flirted with me. That person on the computer screen. I don't love the woman I actually loved. I was able to say no to. Therefore, you got to encourage yourself. Say, therefore, in my marriage, I have strength to keep my marital bond. So to me, it all blends.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we forget, and I've said it in sermons before, everything you do prior to marriage is a funnel. And so
Oh yeah.
you just keep your hand like this. Every decision you make in the dating phase, you just put it top of your head. It's all going to come on your mind. So you just have to be mindful. It's not a refresh.
Right.
It's not like when you were kids. You're
Right.
like, let's
It's
just
not a
start over.
restart
Let's start the
over.
game
Yeah,
over.
No.
And therefore everything that
doesn't
just happened
disappear.
erases. No.
No.
And you can have the Bible. You can talk. You can have deliverance from those things.
Right,
You can walk in
right.
freedom of those things. But if you don't have deliverance from those things, you don't walk in freedom from those things, you're gonna take it into marriage.
Right. And when you're talking about abstinence as a single, you're not just talking about not just sex. You're talking about, I think you slightly mentioned it, masturbation as well. Because there's a question like, is there anything wrong with masturbation when you're single? That's what you're also.
Yeah, I mean the reality is you can't not masturbate without thinking pornographically.
Lustful, yeah.
You're not going to think of pickup trucks when you're masturbating. So
Yeah, that would be really weird. That's what you're thinking.
Or a woman's not going to think about shopping when she's masturbating, right? So
No. Probably not.
so the reality is, by Scripture talking about fornication, pornographic ideas, which their day of
Yeah,
pornography
yeah.
was different. It was imagination.
Yeah,
It was also drawn things, or prostitution was big back then. And so pornographic is that pornea, the breaking of the covenant, the bond with God. And so, so that idea is like, why would God view masturbation as a negative thing? Well, it's because it's where it's leading your mind, which is a form of adultery.
Yeah.
Every theologian kind of has like different views when it comes to like with your spouse or of your spouse, but just all in all, if we're talking about predating, it's
Predating,
because,
yeah.
or pre-marriage, it's because you're thinking God wants you to save yourself for one person, because God has saved himself for one people, which is his church.
Yeah.
So it mirrors that concept that we are to save ourselves for the Lord, and the Lord has saved himself for us. And so for you to give yourself to anyone else, either through thought or action, is a corruption of the person that God. Now, like, are you going to make mistakes? More than likely. But that's where repentance is. That's when a pursuit of holiness comes in. That's where Romans comes in, that says, hey, there's forgiveness and grace when we fail and when we fall. So it's not meant to bring condemnation. It's meant to bring hope, to bring purity into your life, and not necessarily God wagging his finger at you. It's more of like, hey, you got rise to the occasion. Because when you get married, the sexual temptation can often increase at that moment. Not about your spouse. It could be about something else.
Right.
And the amount of times we hear couples that are struggling with their intimacy in their marriage, not because they're not having sex, is because one of them is also mentally, ideologically, emotionally having sex with someone else at the same time. not in the same moment, but in their same life. And that's where the struggle comes in.
Right, that's where you
well, then I'll
So someone's just like, oh man, I'm just doing this right now because I'm single. I'm sleeping around with girls just because I'm single. The moment I get married, all that will stop. Trust me, bro.
no.
Girl,
Those
you
you're creating
stupid. No, it
habits
won't.
already.
No, it won't. No, it won't. You are
100%.
satisfying your flesh, however and whenever, and it's a hard thing to crack and be delivered from unless you really spend the time with accountability and the Lord and all these other things like that. And with the new generation that has technology in their fingertips starting at 3-4 years old, because in my day the idea of pornography or anything else was either through a magazine or you downloaded it on Napster or something like that, and it took 3 days to download. Now this stuff is at
Quick.
young people's fingertips.
Yep.
And so you have to get ahead of it sooner than later, or else it will affect your relationship one day, and it'll affect the commitment one day.
Absolutely. And I think
I'll say this too, because bringing my thought, we were blown away because we were talking to a teenager one time, and we said, "What makes a student popular right now in high school?"
Oh, yes.
And she said, "A person's body count makes a guy popular."
the guy,
so the
guy
more
or a woman?
Guys. The guy's body count.
the more girls that he slept with, the more popular he is in high school. And I said, in my day, that was frowned upon. Having many sex, even to other guys, like they may joke and have you as a player, but you were not viewed in a positive light. Like if you were a guy and you just slept with a bunch of girls, like some guys may be like, "Oh, bro, that's cool, you got game." But most people would be like, "You're a dog. You're dirty."
Yeah.
We definitely know how that would be for girls too.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Girls
but,
that was.
but she said even girls get popular too,
No,
and girls
no.
would try to sleep with guys with high body counts
Yes,
so that they could get popular too.
Yes.
And I was like, this
Did
is
we
a whole
forget
new
about-
this is a whole new era.
Yeah.
I was like, that did not exist in our day. That was a bad thing. So you just see how fast culture changes.
I just think my brain went other places. Like you're just spreading everything everywhere, and you don't. And we talk about it. We talk about it in our relationships. Like you're allowing that many people to be with you. You have no idea the repercussions of what it's going to bring to you down the line, as far as like with your kids or in a marriage. All this cool body count stuff now is totally going to hinder the way that you desire or even treat a woman. Because if you're having a high number body count, at what point is there a value not only in sex but in a woman?
Yeah.
Right.
You do not hold her to a high regard. You're holding yourself to an award that is an imaginary award
Yeah. Yeah.
amongst peers who move on and grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're left beat down, broken, and wondering how you got here by just thinking that sex is this glorified thing to put at the top of your list. And I mean, because I was always brought up like sex is bad. You have sex once, you're gonna get pregnant. Like that.
and you're going to hell.
And you're going to hell.
And Satan gets your
Yep,
name and
yep,
number
yep.
and your address.
Yep. Yep. But then
Yeah.
another thing, though, she did say that the popularity on the other end was that if a woman was smart, which I thought was interesting. That if she was a smart girl, that she would become popular. And I'm like, that's what it was when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was if you were smart, if you were athletic.
Athletic, yeah.
Mm.
Smart and athletic. That was pretty much, you were popular.
Yeah.
You were top of ASB, president, all of that. Now it's how many times you can open your legs. That's just wild.
crazy.
Which is wild.
But that- yeah.
I'll ask this question, and it's on the list as well, and it kind of a little turn for it. But the question is basically, is it healthy or safe to have relationships and friendships of the opposite sex after you get married?
No.
There you
move
go.
All right, everybody, welcome to our advertisement.
Yeah.
So you're watching our episode. We did a short break.
Yep.
What do we got a little break for, Ashley?
Oh, something really, really exciting that when you came home and told me about the news, I was overjoyed, and I hope you had 30 pieces, but you only had one, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
going to be talking about our new partnership
Yes.
with an amazing jeweler.
Yes. So we have big news. We've teamed up with the exceptional jeweler, Aaron Barnett, to bring you a unique jewelry experience from precious metals to custom creations. Aaron has it all, whether you're treating yourself or surprising a loved one. So it could be for you or someone you love, okay? Mother, grandmother, sibling, spouse, a loved one. His jewelry is a testament to cherished moments. As part of our community, you get special discounts and a chance to visit his private showroom in Los Angeles. So for anniversaries, birthdays, or just because, discover Aaron's jewelry in our show notes. Elevate your relationships with exquisite pieces from our partner, Aaron Barnett. It's a great relationship that we have because now we can offer great discounts to our Beyond I Do community to hook them up. And so you visit, like we said, visit the show notes and let's get back into the show.
Well, I'll tell you what helped Adam and I, because we decided early on that was just not going to happen within our marriage. It wasn't necessary for me to have the guy friendships, because for what? I have a husband that's the guy that's in my life. He's the one that I obviously submit to as far as leadership, and it's becomes. I never wanted to disrespect him, and never wanted to say because if he's a friend, what do? You confide in friends. You go to your friends. You call your friends, and I never wanted to seem sneaky or going around his back and texting a guy to get their opinion on something that my husband told me. And it just gets messy. It gets really messy. But there's one thing that we had done in our relationship, in our marriage, that had worked, is that if I ever or he ever had a conversation with, let's just say it was mutual friends, let's just say it was Heron and Cass, and I had to ask Heron a question, I would put Heron, it did not include Adam, I would put Heron in the text along with Cass, to let him know. And I'd say, hey, Heron, or I would put Adam in it because he's Adam's friend, and say, hey, Heron, X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, do you know about this? I want his wife to know that I'm texting her husband, and I don't want a clean slate. So I think if you do have that time where you're like, I have my husband's friend and I want to ask him, or if a coworkers that we've worked with before, when I've told you, on staff, I would text, I knew his wife, I'd put her, and it had to do with work. It had to do with work. I put her in the text message and I said, hey, I'm texting your husband, but I want you along in the conversation because it has to deal with work. And I don't ever want my name to come up in your phone or his phone and you see it and think something of it. I'm asking work-related questions. That was me out of respect for her. And knowing that I'm not going to be a deterrent, or I'm not going to be the one to stir up whatever. I don't know what's going on in their marriage. So the last thing I want to do is stir up anything within their relationship on a work question. Or even allow and have that door for the enemy to open up for inappropriate questions or conversation. So I think that if that is, and you're like, well, I did have friends and they are my husband's friends, well, then you guys all need to be in a group text message together and never individually. And there should never be any side conversations, and that should be an open conversation laid out on the table.
Yeah.
Anything against it or for it?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we started out. Now that as we've gotten further,
I don't.
Erica may ask me a one-off question, or you may text Heron a one-off question, but that's because a lot of trust and a lot of years of community has garnered, and there's only a few people that you or I would text 100%. Individually of the opposite sex. But I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, that person's my independent friend. It'd be like, Aaron's my friend, and his wife is my wife's friend, and we're friends together. And Erica may see something and be like, hey, do you think Matthias would like this? I'm like, oh yeah, thank you, thanks for grabbing it, like something like that. But outside of that, to me, those are like couples friendships. 100%. When we got married, you had guy friends, I had some girlfriends. I even got to marry one of my best girlfriends that I had in high school, but we don't really have a relationship anymore because we're both married. And so that relationship and you and I went on a couple double dates with them, but the relationship never naturally garnered with us as couples. So then now we've just grown
Naturally
and we
drifted.
see each other through like social media,
Right.
maybe make a comment on social media like congrats or so happy for you.
Yep.
But the relationship, the friendship wasn't what it was.
Right.
It's not really anything that outside of what the public can see.
Right.
And to me, it's just that's how it often could be, especially for a female. Like when we met, you had a couple guy friends,
Yep.
and then you would naively be like, they're just friends, and then at some point I'd be like, hey, did you ever date them? Well, they tried at one point, but I turned it down, so now we're just friends. Like, yeah, so if you gave him a shot, he'd
yeah.
be game.
Right,
if
right,
you're
right.
if our marriage was going through crap and you needed a shoulder to cry on, he'd happily open his arms up to you. Or it's just oftentimes can just not be appropriate. So I think if the husband and wife, like if you guys are okay with it, who am I to judge? Like
Right.
do whatever. But I can just tell you by years of counseling, anyone who claims that it can be possible, rarely have I ever seen it where the spouse has no connection to that friend,
Right.
like hasn't become their friend as well, that it become healthy.
Right.
And so I was just always under the opinion that when I got married, whatever female relationships I'd have at the time would no longer exist
Right.
like they used to. And if I ever wanted to talk to them again or something like that, I would do it in a sense where you were included in it. My wife was included in it, whether
Right.
it be a group text or whatever else it may be. And so it's very hard. Now, in the dating phase, did I ever want you to not have your friends, your guy friends, or did you ever expect me that I had a couple girlfriends from high school or whatever? But I also I personally never hung out with them one-on-one. You talked to them one-on-one a few times, but after a couple times, as you and I got serious, I personally put a boundary.
Yeah,
and I said,
absolutely.
hey, if you want to continue a friendship with that guy,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be in a relationship with you.
Right.
So you make whatever decision you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, because every time you'd be around him, and we talked about it
Be
before, he would joke
disrespect.
about me. He
Absolutely.
would make fun of me or whatever. And I'd never even met the guy.
Right.
And so it was just like, hey, I'm not rocking with that anymore. You
Mm-hmm.
could decide to do whatever you want. And you could have said, oh, Adam's insecure or whatever. But no, I'm not insecure. I have more respect for myself
Right.
is what it is. I got too much respect for myself. So that's where I think that aspect involves. But for us, immediately when we got married, we moved into at least for the foreseeable future, we were like, we're not going to individually text the
Right.
opposite sex. Now,
Yeah.
some work stuff you text, but I tend to say, that if you're texting work text, try to make it in a work group text. I know people that are like nurses and they work with male nurses and female nurses and they all have a group text.
Right.
But, I don't think it's good that the opposite sex coworker shoots you a one-off and says, did you see this funny TikTok? And then you start this
Right.
kind of humor conversation. I would just say it's not the wisest.
Right.
I'm not saying, you could be innocent, they could be innocent.
Yeah.
So I'm not assuming guilty intent. I'm not even trying to say it looks sketchy. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's what it could lead to.
100%.
And it's also what it could, I don't think you should ever talk down on your spouse to the opposite sex. So if you're a woman, you're frustrated with your husband to talk to a male coworker, and I don't think that's wise either. Well, I'm just trying to get a male opinion. You're probably not. There's enough information on
Right.
YouTube that if you're trying to find an opinion, Google it.
Right.
You don't need to hear from
Right.
someone else about it. That's not in your direct community. That
Right.
doesn't know your spouse personally and can't know both of you and
Right.
empathize both of you. So
Yeah.
we've done so many years of counseling. It's just where that leads.
Oh,
where that can
100%.
lead. Yep.
100%.
So I guess to maybe wrap it up. Or sorry,
Yeah.
were you gonna say
No,
something?
go ahead.
So there was one question too, and I think we've talked about this before. But as far as like finding a soulmate, like did God predestine one person for me? I mean we've talked about it. So, but maybe if you want to touch on it again, like is there that one soulmate for you, or is it more you just got to choose based on
I'm still
compatibility
looking.
and
Still searching.
No.
yeah, compatibility? Obviously, your ethics and.
Well, I
morals
think
align.
we're all part of God's plan, and so I believe that me and Ashlee being together and married with our boys, I believe that's something that was in God's plan for sure. But was there the ability on an earthly sense that it was our decision and we could have ended up with someone else or chose someone else. Yeah, absolutely. So, because soulmate entails that there would be some type of soul tie where ultimately we know in heaven there isn't an earthly relationship in heaven. So me and Ashlee won't know each other as husband and wife in heaven. We'll know each other as really both being children of God, and also knowing our history together, but we won't have that same love and affection that we do here on earth for each other. And so it has nothing to do with soul and spirit. It has everything to do with our earthly selves that God is moving through and God is leading. And so I do believe that God has warning signs, and I believe that people do choose off their own fruition and end up with, you can choose the wrong person. Yes. So is there someone who goes their life never meeting their soulmate? Not necessarily. Your flesh chose someone that was not good for you, and you have to live with your commitments, and you have to live with you had a child with someone that didn't turn out to be a good person. Like, you made that decision. God didn't bring those souls together. You made that decision to live the way you were living. You have the repercussions right now, but God can do a great work in it. God could move in it, and God can actually have a better future for both you together or you not together. God can have a better future, but is God in heaven like, ooh, they almost got their soulmate and they missed out or anything like that? No, there's nothing in the Bible that entails that. Everything in the Bible seems to be that a person sees a woman, they decide they want to marry them. Nowhere in there does it ever inclinate like God orchestrated this or God brought. It was really, they were praying and believing for a type of person or looking for something. They found it in each other, and they also had a lot of times imperfect marriages.
Right.
Because to me, soulmate also entails like the perfect relationship. Like there are probably better people for Ashlee in her life, and there probably would have been better people for me if you want to just look at the sense of like living a perfect life. We don't have a perfect life.
Right.
We argue, and we, have times where we want to be separate from each other. Like, there could be a person that you click better, but guess what? I said yes to someone, this person, and I'm never not saying yes. So the idea of soulmate would be like, because then you go and the question is, what if you didn't marry your soulmate? You've been married 10 years and you meet your soulmate. Stupid. Or you're going to divorce them?
Right.
Because I've heard that argument.
Oh, plenty of times.
I met my soulmate at work, so that's why I'm leaving my wife or my husband. And so if you believe soulmate has anything to do with God, you'll convince yourself why it's important or why you could be allowed to leave this person. And no, God works in and through what your decisions you have made.
Yeah, because he would have told Adam and Eve. He would have told Adam. He wouldn't have said it's not good for a man to be alone. He would have said, I made your soul tie.
I made your soulmate.
I made your soulmate.
He gave her a woman, and he said, well, what you think about it? You want her or not? And Adam said, I will call her a woman.
Literally.
I will call her a woman.
And then I'll blame her for everything.
Yeah. It's like, it was his decision. God made her. God said, what do you think?
Just make a choice.
Right.
Pray about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
we talked about before, you look at other, so like there should be things you look for in a person's character and conduct and all that stuff like that if you want to marry, quote unquote, a soulmate.
Right, but even going back to Adam and Eve, of going back to the tree and eating the fruit, there was a whole bunch of where Adam, still in that point too, had said, like, you gave me this woman, and though he gave her the woman, he's like, no, I made the woman, and these are natural reactions. I gave you the freedom of choice. I gave you the freedom of choice to be with this woman. I gave you the freedom. Do you want her? Yeah, I'll call her woman. Yeah. So at the end of the day, with the soul ties,
well, Adam tried that. He said, the woman you gave me, did this, and it's like, and God's like, woman, I gave you. Oh, now all of a sudden I forced you to be with her, and I forced your hand. It was like, no, it's not. You made the decision to be with her, Adam.
100%. Same with soul ties. Like, you are deciding, and I mean, the luck of the draw.
And physical attraction. You have to be attracted to the person physically. And the person that you choose.
Yeah, you want to be.
You want to be.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, are you watching Love is Blind? Yeah. Absolutely not. No, Love is not blind. Shows. You literally look at the person. And if I have to look at someone, if I was looking at Shrek every day, I'd be like, oh my gosh. No, absolutely not.
But some people find Shrek beautiful.
He's a cutie.
Yeah,
Everybody
Fiona.
has to
Yeah,
be.
Fiona.
Everybody
See,
has
no.
some type of. You know.
Nancy,
No,
get some.
but-
You don't just need to be married all of a sudden now, do you? Find somebody
No,
attractive.
yes, somebody you do find attractive. No, 100%. 100%.
All right, you got to pick up our boys from school. So
Yeah,
we
no,
can end it.
no, you got to be a coach today.
Oh, I gotta go back to work.
No, you don't. You have to be a coach at
This is the
5:15
behind the
today.
scenes,
I gotta
everybody.
go back. I gotta
No,
go back to
you
work right
you
now.
signed up to be an assistant coach, guys. We are coaching my son's soccer team,
Pastor
and he
Alex,
needs
you're an
to be there.
assistant coach?
Yes.
Kind of, but I got stuff I gotta go do.
No,
So,
and
Nancy handles my calendar.
I
There's stuff
understand
has to
that.
happen.
So you better be at practice.
God bless everybody.
6:15.
Go
Actually,
find your
sorry, you have
soulmates.
time. You have time.
Stop.